Does good form actually cause better gains? Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you're not following or subscribe, please do so. And if you would be kind enough to drop me a comment down below, I would appreciate that so much, so thank you. All right, let's get over to the topic. Does it actually cause better gains? A lot of people feel it does. I'm going to say there's a lot more nuance to it than that. Both observing the real world, observing amazing champion bodybuilders, and then looking at some of the research that's looked at it. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. Oftentimes, fairly loose form, even a degree of cheating, if you look at the real world, produces pretty dang good bodybuilders in many cases. Arnold Schwarzenegger had really loose form. Ronnie Coleman had really loose form. Branch Warren has horrific form. He still got crazy jack. Now people will say, well, what about they're using a lot of stuff. Well, yeah, probably a factor. Because then, any fatigue that stimulates the muscle is going to cause growth for them, but it's stimulating fatigue. So, here's the real question then. Have studies looked at it? People are like, well, that's in those guys, but what about data? Well, here's kind of, you look at the research largely suggests that the same thing. Okay? Again, that's going to be a shock. In this case, the research actually kind of agrees with Ronnie Coleman and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know people don't want to hear that. They're like, what? Is that even possible? The form was so loose, and how about all that? But it's like, okay, guys, but it worked for them. And I think what people have to remember, and I'll jump into kind of what the research and stuff has said, at the end of the day, the guys who are number one in something like that, keep in mind they're competing against tons of other guys with great genetics for their endeavor. They're competing against tons of other guys on tons and tons and tons of stuff. So we need to be clear on that, right? We need to be really, really clear when you're thinking about some of these top pro bodybuilders. You can't say, well, they only got there because of the drugs or the genetics. Well, yeah, those are clearly factors. But everyone they're competing against has that same advantage. So we need to be clear on that. Every person that they are beating, the guy in 7th place is still on tons of drugs and has really good genetics for bodybuilding. See what I mean? So if that was the key, then why is he 7th place? So again, success leaves clues. And you look at some of their form that's definitely a little bit loose, especially those two guys, perfect examples. Yet they both won a lot. Well, you have to look at that in comparison and go, well, they clearly got something right. I mean, again, let's step back and answer that question. They are competing against guys on lots of stuff who also have really good genetics for bodybuilding. Well, clearly they must have done a few things right. They couldn't have done everything wrong or they wouldn't have been winning. Just saying, success leaves clues. And I would look at some of that and say, yet they still worked the muscles, okay? So step back and watch. I mean, people will look at Arnold curl or do rows or any of the things. And Ronnie Coleman, the same thing. Watch Ronnie Coleman curl. Watch him do front raises. Watch him do a lot of raises. Like he uses a lot of body English, a lot of swing. The form is very loose. Okay, but what do you notice with that form? There's still tension. Like even though there's other muscles involved, you're watching his front raises. Well, the front and the side delts and the upper traps are still doing most of the work, right? There's still going to be the muscles that fail. If he took it to failure, is the hips or the other things contributing going to failure? No. Are the muscles he's trying to work going to failure? Yes. Same thing with his curls. Yeah, there's definitely some front delt. There's definitely other stuff happening with what he's doing. But are the biceps the muscle that is most likely to reach enough fatigue to fail first? Yes, same thing. You watch Arnold stuff. Watch Arnold row, watch Arnold curl. Biceps, or then the lats, in that case, the lats and the traps and everything. That was probably failing when he's doing those loose rows. Yeah. Yes, he's got a lot more low back. Yes, he's got some hip drive, but that's probably not what's reaching muscle failure. And if anything, some of that is actually getting some positive training stimulus. Is it not? So you have to look at those things and go, okay, it's obviously still working the muscles. So then when you look at the research, what they found is pretty bad form, pretty loose form, seems to cause pretty much the same muscle as strict form, with one caveat. Was it performed in such a way where the main muscle still is getting really good stimulus? So even if other muscles are helping, was the muscle you were working getting really good stimulus? If the answer is yes, and if it's what's failing first, it tends to grow just as well as doing a same amount of fatigue set with stricter form. Okay? So that's what we have to remember there, right? What's our real concern then? Possible injury. Realistically, really loose form, your biggest concern is going to be injury. It will also be, can you keep tension or create tension on the muscle you're trying to work? Okay? And I think that really has to be asked, right? So is your form loose enough that you're feeling the other muscles do a ton of work? Or is the bicep or the delt or the quad or whatever you're trying to work still getting the brunt of it? Okay, so again, that's kind of what they're finding. Now, if it's so sloppy that that muscle really isn't getting a significant stimulus, right, then it's going to be different. But a little bit of swinging absolutely doesn't stop it. And you want proof. Why do compound movements work? If people say, well, it's not isolating, but neither is a row. A row doesn't isolate the lats. You still build, even a strict row doesn't isolate the lats. A strict squat doesn't isolate the quads. A strict leg press doesn't isolate the quads. Hell, a glute ham raise doesn't even isolate the glutes. It works on less than the hamstrings, but it still doesn't isolate it. See where we're going with this? How about chin-ups? They don't isolate the biceps or the lats, but they build both decently. They also build your traps. You see where we're going? A lateral raise doesn't even isolate the side delts. When locked in a machine, it still works the front delt, the rear delt, the upper trap. Makes all of them grow to some extent. So just because other muscles are, for example, doing a dip here. Dips are a great chest and tricep exercise. So because the chest is so involved in a dip, does that mean the triceps don't grow? Go do a set of weighted dips all the way down to failure and come back and tell me your triceps did not get an insane pump. Come on. There's other muscles involved. And the same could be said when using a little looser form. As long as the muscle you are trying to work gets a very significant stimulus to the point to where it can actually get very close to muscle failure, or even be the muscle that fails if you take the exercise to failure, you're going to get good stimulus from it. And that's the thing to remember. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.